A new video has emerged showing the removal of MH17. Now that is the wreckage of a flight that was basically taken down about 4 months ago in Ukraine. The video shows that there was a lot of destruction in the aftermath, of course, and the original video has been posted on a Russian newspaper, and it's getting a lot of really strong commentary, especially because there still needs to be an investigation. We still don't know who brought the plane down. Was it individuals in Ukraine? Was it pro-Russian separatists? We don't know yet, but the investigation continues. With that said, take a look at the CNN video because it gives you a little more context into this story.
And you can see it's not a delicate one to collect the scattered debris of the aircraft, the Boeing 777, from across this landscape, loaded onto flatbed trucks, and it will eventually find its way back to the Netherlands to be reassembled to some degree as part of the investigation to try and find out precisely what brought this aircraft down. This is taking place under the supervision of Dutch investigators, but the work is being carried out by local Ukrainian emergency services, men who now work for the separatist government that has been established here in the Donetsk region, and should also point out it is taking place under the supervision of some of the armed pro-Russian gunmen. Could be many more weeks before experts actually begin examining it very closely, trying to piece it together. It is, in terms of an aircraft and an investigation, an eternity really, but it is important that it is happening now, because in this region, well, winter is almost here.
As you can understand, this has really tainted relations between Russia and the United States because the controversy over who is responsible for this crash continues. Just to give you a sense of how many victims there were, Flight 17 was shot down on July 17th, and there were about 298 people on board over the territory controlled by pro-Russian separatists. Okay, so of course there's a political element to this, and it's a really scary story to consider, especially since this could lead to an all-out war. Now, after this wreckage was found, most of the bodies were recovered except for about 9 individuals. Now that they've started the cleanup effort, they have found some remains of more victims. It's a sad story. I want you guys to chime in. Francis, make your point.
So the first point I wanted to make is about just the tragedy of this whole situation, and the fact is that there's still so many remains that are not found, and I can't even imagine the families of those passengers who have yet to find out basically what happened and whether they can go on and try and find some closure in this aspect of it. But for me, the length of this this cleanup and the length of this investigation poses the same question that like one of the representatives, Fedorov, said, is like, is this a cover-up? Is this the length of this investigation to go on to prevent more evidence being put towards Russia, who are suspected to have been involved in this issue? And for me, as a non-political activist, I'm just curious to find out why blame hasn't been put on. I don't know much about the length of investigation, how long it usually goes on, but it's been, what, 4 months now?
It's been 4 months since this plane was,
yeah, you'd expect there'd be some sort of like growth in this investigation. Right. I'm still astounded by that.
What's amazing is, as was said in that video, they kind of had a sense of urgency to start this cleanup effort because winter's coming, yes. Right? So if winter wasn't coming, are you just going to leave it there for several more months? It's ridiculous. Sandra, what about you? Make your point.
Game of Thrones aside, yeah, it's... For me, this is a really painful situation, but at the same time, it's also, I'm so glad that we finally found the wreckage, and so that those families can move forward at least a bit, so you know that generally you kind of know what happened instead of this mystery of conspiracy theories and the internet going wild. So, because there's something about when you've lost someone and you don't know what happened, that your life goes on pause. Like there is like an immediate freeze to your psyche. Yeah. So at least we have that. And it really is fascinating that we don't have a climate of honesty and forgiveness and compassion and common sense in today's world. Politics. Yeah. So I don't have a whole lot of hope that the truth is really ever going to come out. But I feel like that's the status quo at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if foreign relations revolved around compassion, we wouldn't have as much death and destruction as we do internationally. Now, here's the question for this story. Have you ever blamed someone for something that was actually your fault, or vice versa? Have you ever been blamed for something that actually wasn't your fault at all? Sandra, let me start with you.
I'm still angry about this. It was 4th grade. And I discovered kick me signs where and so I was writing kick me and putting it on people's backs, not realizing that people actually kick someone who, I thought it was just funny as a thing that they did in the 50s. Then somebody got kicked really hard and I got in trouble for the sign.
Oh,
and I am still bitter about it.
So you're responsible for the kick me sign going through a generation.
Right.
You're responsible for my torturous childhood.
But not the cruelty.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah. What about you, Francis?
So me
Francis, I don't know why I said your name like that.
This has happened far too often.
I know, but it wasn't even intentional. I just randomly called you Francis.
She does this on a regular basis in the studio. So mine is going to be kind of funny because I'm sitting in between two women, but I'm currently living with a house full of women, and I'm constantly accused of leaving the toilet seat up, and I am guaranteed I do not do it because in this house full of women, it's a constant battle for certain things of power. But whenever I seem to do something wrong elsewhere, they use this as a strategy to come back in between it. And it's funny at the same time, but I get blamed every single day for leaving the toilet seat up. And I think we've got a house full of dogs. Someone's been doing something.
You're living in a house full of women?
Well, I mean,
do you also have binders full of women?
Mitt Romney joke for anyone that doesn't get it. So I'm living in a house full of women, and they're using this against me, and I stand my ground. I don't leave the toilet seat up.
Interesting. I don't really get blamed for certain actions, but I do get blamed for certain ideas that I actually don't have, right? So the only thing that really comes to mind at this very moment is when people think that I'm like an extreme feminist or a radical feminist. I definitely identify as a feminist. I don't think that I'm radical. And then it's funny because when you are kind of in the middle ground, you get criticism from both sides, right? Yeah. So you'll have MRA activists who think you're a feminazi, and then you'll have feminists who are like, you're not feminist enough, and then you get hate from both sides, which is an uncomfortable position to be in. Yeah. But I mean, I think that you have to be a logical person and take certain situations on a case-by-case basis and do commentary on it, knowing the facts, and that's what I do. I'm not going to tell myself hey, I'm a Democrat, so I'm going to believe everything Democrats believe, or I'm a Republican and I'm going to believe everything Republicans believe, although I don't really believe anything Republicans believe. But I do want to hear from you guys. Share your story. What do you think about this wreckage? Do you think that Russia played a role? Do you think that this is some sort of conspiracy? I do want to hear your thoughts, and also answer the question that I asked my panelists today. Have you ever been blamed for something that you did not do? Comment in the section below, and we'll see you guys soon.